Hi everyone, welcome to our Diabetes Awareness Month talk, a blood sugar friendly Thanksgiving. I'm RanDee, I'm one of the dietitians here at Synergy Health and Wellness, and I will be operating the camera. Don't judge. We're here with our 67th attempt, our 67th take at this video, and I'll introduce you to Kacey, who will take it from here.
Hi everyone, I'm Kacey. I'm a dietitian and diabetes educator here at Synergy Health and Wellness. Thanks for joining us today. So in addition to being Diabetes Month, it's also the start of the holiday season, which can be a really stressful time to try and manage blood sugar. So today we're going to be talking about all things Thanksgiving and how we can best have a carb-friendly Thanksgiving while preventing big blood sugar spikes. So on our table here today, we have all of our traditional Thanksgiving food, and we've kind of divided it into two sections. Carb-based foods are over here, and our non-carb foods are on this side. So we're going to utilize the plate method today to plan out how we're going to dish up our Thanksgiving dinner. So if you've worked with us before, you probably remember our plate method is half plate vegetables, quarter plate protein, and quarter plate carbs. So that's how we're going to be planning this out. So I'm going to take my plate here and start to fill it. And I'm going to suggest that you start filling with the protein and the vegetables first and then save the carbs for last. So our protein today is our turkey. So I'm going to put a good serving of turkey breast here on my plate, filling up a quarter of it. And then our vegetable here of choice is a salad. And this salad has mixed greens, shaved Brussels sprouts, carrots, pumpkin seeds, and Parmesan cheese in it.
Yum.
There's not any dressing shown here, but you could add a really simple vinaigrette or something like olive oil and lemon juice to keep it low carb. So I'm gonna put salad on half my plate. So now I've got my non-starchy veggies, my protein, and I still have a quarter of my plate to fill with carbs. So over on this side of the table, we've got kind of the mainstream carb foods, stuffing, green bean casserole, which is a lower carb option, but does have some carbs from the milk and the cream of mushroom soup, along with the fried onions. We've got cranberry sauce, mashed potatoes, candied yams, and rolls. So I suggest picking some of your favorite items and things that maybe you don't have access to year-round. So today I'm going to put the green bean casserole on my plate, and half a cup of this has about 9 grams of carbs. So like I said, it's a lower carb thing, but does still have some. And keep in mind that we're aiming for about 45 to 60 grams of carb total for our meal. So here I've got my 9.
So it sounds like by using the plate method, we almost don't really have to count. If we're sticking to about a quarter of the plate, it's naturally between that 45 and 60?
Yes, absolutely. So yeah, I'm just kind of going to give you the carb counts just for reference, but using about a quarter of your plate is that perfect 45 to 60 grams of carb. So don't have to measure everything. And then I'm going to take some candied yams. So in candied yams, half a cup has 45 grams of carb. So that's what's going to kind of make up the rest of my carb portion on my plate today. So you can see I filled a quarter of my plate.
Let's get a closer look. Can you tilt it a little bit? Perfect.
And then I'm going to put some gravy on my turkey. So this particular gravy doesn't have carbs in it, but if you are making one with a flour base, then it's going to have some carbs, but usually not a super high amount, maybe about 5 grams. So we're going to top our turkey with gravy and call that a meal. So keep in mind some other sources of carb at your meal might be like alcohol. Wine, beer, mixed drinks all can have varying amounts of carbs in them. So if you were wanting to indulge in that, I would keep that in mind or have that at a different time of the day and stick with water at your meal. Some alternative suggestions, if you are wanting to have more non-starchy veggies or lower carb options, could be on the non-starchy veggie side, you could do carrots, and you could even add a small amount of glaze. We have a recipe on our website, synergyhealthbin.com, under our Diabetes Month tab for some glazed carrots that are a lot lower in carb than the yams. So you could use those as an alternative. You could also do some roasted Brussels sprouts. You could do sauteed or steamed green beans instead of making the green bean casserole. And all of that would give you a lot more options for the half of your plate that we want to be non-starchy veggies. And then when it comes to the other main carb options, you could do like a cauliflower or half cauliflower with your potato to make that a lower carb option. And you could, that's it.
What about with stuffing? I guess I made one years ago where I added broccoli, and so it was still, you know, stuffing and all the goodies, but a little bit lower carb, right? Because it had some veggies added.
Oh yeah, that's a good idea.
Okay.
So you could try to make a lower carb stuffing. I'm sure there's a lot of recipes online utilizing, you know, lower carb breads or, you know, beefing it up with a lot of veggies to take away some of the carbs. So rolls, I was gonna mention, one roll has around 30 grams of carbs. So if that's your carb of choice, just keep that in mind. For me personally, I feel like we can have bread any day of the year, so it's not usually my top choice on Thanksgiving. I'm going to show you another plate over here that I would use. This would be my preference because stuffing is my favorite. And
just a little bit.
in half a cup of stuffing, we got about 20 grams of carb. And in half a cup of mashed potatoes, we have another 15 to 20 grams of carb. And then our cranberry sauce, there's about 20 grams of carb in a quarter cup of cranberry sauce. So that's probably 1/8 of a cup there. So this is kind of rounding out to around 45 grams total here.
Okay. What about dessert?
Great question. So in our pies, as you can imagine, they are higher in carb. So So 1/8 of a piece of pie is a typical serving. And in apple pie, for example, 1/8 of a piece has 45 grams of carb. Pumpkin pie is our lowest carb dessert option, and it has 35 grams of carb in 1/8 of a piece. And then pecan pie would be our highest carb option with about 65 grams of carb in one piece, all pieces being 1/8 of a slice. So 1/8 of a pie.
Okay, and how do we make that fit if we've already spent our budget on our plate?
Good question. So I recommend spreading out your food options throughout the day. So you're gonna have one meal with your 45 or 60 grams of carb, like the plate methods that we just showed you. And then you're gonna wait a few hours and you're gonna have, say, dessert at that time. And that's gonna be your next 45-ish to 60, depending on your choice pie option.
Okay, and then on our website, I think you shared a recipe for pumpkin pie that maybe had tofu in it. Is it lower carb?
It is. It has about half the amount of carbs of regular pumpkin pie, and you can always make that option or a regular pumpkin pie without a crust to reduce the carbs even more. Baked apples are another great way to, enjoy a dessert without a lot of carb from the crust.
Okay, so it sounds like still enjoying all the foods you love, but kind of spreading them out so that you're just not going overboard on your blood sugar budget at one time.
Yeah, and you want to keep some mindful eating in mind. So, we typically tend to get to the point of being uncomfortably full on Thanksgiving. And at that point, we're not really enjoying our food anymore. So keeping in mind your hunger and fullness level and trying to stop when you're full and save the rest of that food that you're wanting to enjoy for a later time can help prevent uncomfortableness, but also keep your blood sugar a little more stable. We want to try to avoid overloading our system with 90 plus grams of carb at one time, which you could see would be easy to do if you had all the carb options and dessert all at one time.
Okay, what are some other ways that we can be mindful of our blood sugars or help bring our blood sugars down during the day?
That's a great question. So I definitely would recommend, not skipping breakfast, because if you are going to go extended periods of time without food, your liver is still going to release a bunch of sugar anyway, so you're still going to end up with a potentially high blood sugar even though you haven't had anything to eat. So I would recommend having your normal breakfast rather than trying to save up all your carbs, for one meal later in the day. Eat, consistently, like we said, and then drinking lots of water can actually help lower your blood sugar, along with some movement. So getting out for a walk or playing some football can all be helpful in lowering that blood sugar, especially after a meal.
Gotcha, thank you.
And just keep in mind, that Thanksgiving doesn't have to be all about the food. Keep in mind the reason for the season, and focus on some other aspects of the day, your traditions or favorite movies or things that you enjoy doing, instead of all focused on food.
So it sounds like, we want people to be able to enjoy the foods that they love, but again, without going over on their blood sugars in one sitting. And also just thinking about why this matters, or why we might want to be mindful of our blood sugars during the Thanksgiving meal or the holiday season. I think you once told me something about A1C increases during the holidays. Can you touch on that?
Yeah, so typically we see A1Cs go up anywhere from 1 to 2% after the holiday season, which is pretty significant. Typically if you're going to eat one meal or one day, it's not going to make a huge impact on your A1C, but what we do over 3 months' time definitely does. And if you think about, Halloween to New Year's, that's a long stretch of time where we're kind of in holiday mode. So I recommend trying to keep the holiday around the holiday for the most part, and then just be on your normal routine all the other days in between to help keep that A1C lower. But then when it comes to the holiday itself, try to utilize these tips to prevent a huge blood sugar spike, because that's not going to feel good. You don't want to end up with symptoms or in the hospital, worst case scenario, from a high blood sugar on the day. So one day isn't going to make or break everything, but you still want to try to do your best to keep your blood sugar in a safe range for your own comfort and well-being.
Fantastic. Anything else to add about either the foods that we have on this table or where people might be able to find more support?
So you can definitely check us out on our Facebook page or our Central Oregon Diabetes Support Group page on Facebook, and our website under our Diabetes Month tab, where we have several recipes and more information.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Kacey, for sharing your expertise, and for everyone out there, thanks for watching.
Thanks for joining us. Enjoy your Thanksgiving.